even today, you look in my eyes, you wouldn't know that I'm blind.
So you're losing your vision. That had to be so incredibly scary. And then they're like, well, just go check in with the clinic in a couple of weeks while your vision's continually getting worse and you're slowly going blind. I can't imagine.
Right. It was very scary. It was very scary. There was no answers. The one vision problem that Ozempic does acknowledge is retinopathy. The overseeing doctor came in and just bluntly told me that I was that was permanent, that I was going to have to get used to a life with low vision, basically get over it. Well, of course, when my eyesight started going, I stopped taking the Ozempic right then. We've had people who've had to have their gallbladders removed. One of our members' husband died after only taking 2 shots. To heck with you all. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going on the carnivore diet and I'm getting rid of my diabetes and all these other issues I'm dealing with. My inflammation started going away.
So you've had some incredible improvements on carnivore. What about the diabetes? Has anything changed there in terms of insulin and medication you're taking?
Well, so I don't take anything for my diabetes.
So you're not on any medication for the diabetes now, it's just carnivore diet?
Yeah.
Wow.
My oldest, he also has type 2 diabetic. So my whole family would have benefited from proper medical care if I had been informed of what really was the problem. My whole family, I would have cooked for my whole family differently.
Cheryl, what would you say to someone that's desperate and hopeless and they have type 2 diabetes and they're considering taking Ozempic?
I would say.
The following interview is with Cheryl. She is now a carnivore, but she was type 2 diabetic and she was put on Ozempic and she had some remarkable side effects, including blindness that she wanted to share. She also has a Facebook group about Ozempic and side effects, and she's now a carnivore. And just before we jump into that, I want to share a few quick clips. I did a reaction video to this gentleman who was on Tucker Carlson the other day talking about the crazy side effects of Ozempic.
But the problem is when you get to the individual level, this drug medically is a absolute disaster. There's lawsuits coming, just reported in the past couple of days, on gastrointestinal issues and stomach paralysis. The drug itself essentially is stomach paralysis.
What is stomach paralysis?
Paralyzes your stomach to make you not be able to process food correctly. And there's studies now saying that stomach paralysis, the really messing with your ability to digest food, actually stays after you go off the drug. So there's lawsuits now with people with severe gastrointestinal issues after coming off the drugs that's being pronounced, and that's coming out in lawsuits. Additionally, because of that, you're consistently seeing patients who go off the drugs gain the weight back. So that's almost, I think, universally accepted even by Novo Nordisk. When you go off the drug, you gain the weight back. But again, we're seeing most people that take the drug within the first year come off it because the gastrointestinal issues, the stomach issues are so pronounced. Additionally, the EU, again, where this company is based, just launched a probe into suicidal ideation caused by Ozempic. You can't even make this up. But the EU is doing a massive probe because there's so many reports of increased depression and increased suicide. Now, I was debating a Harvard doctor about 6 months ago, and I brought this up because it's kind of obvious. Your serotonin, what produces your contentment and happiness, 95% is made in the gut. And again, Ozempic essentially is gut dysfunction. So when you mess with the serotonin and mess with the gut, a lot of unexpected things happening. The core mistake of Ozempic is that obesity is not an Ozempic deficiency. Obesity is not the root cause of the problem. And instead of talking about the root cause, we're saying that a weekly injection that you have to take for your entire life that costs $20,000 per patient when 80% of American adults are overweight or obese, we're saying that is the answer for obesity.
Hello and welcome. Carrie here from Healing Humanity, the power of a proper human diet. Today I have Cheryl on the channel to share her story. Cheryl's story is a harrowing account of her experience with the medication Ozempic. She's also a carnivore. She's had some unexpected health complications, including legal blindness. Welcome to the channel, Cheryl. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Carrie, for talking with me about this subject.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I'm very interested to learn more and hear your story. Could you maybe start off by telling us a little bit about when you were first diagnosed with diabetes?
Well, I've actually been diabetic for quite a while. I think it was 2015 when I was first diagnosed, but I'm sure that I had it before then. I had some problems, some inflammation problems, and the doctor who I was seeing, she literally refused to test my A1C, but ran many other tests trying to diagnose these other problems. But when I was diagnosed in 2015, I was put on insulin pretty quickly because my diabetes was pretty uncontrolled at that time. So, and I've never really managed my diabetes very well. Just disclaimer there.
Right.
I have been on two insulins, a long acting and a short acting. So for those of you who don't know what the purpose of the two insulins are, the long acting is supposed to carry you through a 24-hour period. And then the short acting you take to cover the carbohydrate boost or load from a meal. So it's not supposed to be huge amounts. And the two are supposed to work together to keep your sugars low.
So would it be after a meal you take the short acting one just regularly?
Well, I would often take it after a meal, but you're actually supposed to take it like 15 minutes before you eat.
I see. Okay. And when you were diagnosed with the diabetes, do you have some, I don't know, some stats on what like your A1C levels were and things like that?
I can't remember because it was so long ago what it was. But there were periods of time where I wasn't under medical care. So this most recent time that I had a year-long break without medical care. So my diabetes was basically just left to run rampant. When I did go in and start regular visits with a doctor, my A1C at that time was 12.7, which is very high. That's a level where you're risking vital organ damage and things like that.
And when you first were diagnosed with diabetes, was it just medication was the only option for you, or did they ever talk about nutrition or anything else?
They didn't really, they always do a cursory explanation of how you should eat, but it's basically the standard American diet without the sugar. They still incorporate carbohydrates and vegetables and stuff like that. So it's basically almost like the pyramid. It's really not a diabetic friendly diet.
Right. And so you were diagnosed in 2015, and then what sort of happened after that for you?
Well, the thing with diabetes is that many things affect it, not just what you eat. If you get sick, that can cause your body to raise your blood sugar. If you're under stress, that can cause your body to raise your blood sugar. So there are many different things that do affect it. And so I did have a lot of stress in my life at that time, extreme amounts of stress. So it just really, it just ran its course. I was having more problems like literal joints swelling up to where I couldn't bend my knee. And we never could find the source of that inflammation, but it really was, in hindsight, the diabetes all along. And before I went back into care this most recent time, I was having my feet swell up and my hands would swell up, visible enough for other people to notice. And then after months, it would take for the swelling to go down. That would leave, brown coloration, like bruises left behind from the damage to the tissues from the inflammation. Yeah.
Right. And so when were you introduced to Ozempic?
I was introduced to Ozempic. It was September, I believe, that I started taking it, of 2023 or 2022, excuse me, 2022. I took it at 0.25 milliliter, and I did that for 4 weeks, and then I moved to the 0.5. My doctor encouraged me that I could go up to 1 milliliter if I wanted to, but I was fine. I wanted to keep it what I thought was conservative at a low dose, which of course I found out since researching after everything happened that 0.5 is actually a mega dose compared to what the FDA approved this drug for. So I was on the medication for about 4 months, and I started having problems with acid reflux. Now, I'd had a history of acid reflux before this, but I started craving also things like buffalo wings, which is not a good combination for acid reflux. But I think what I was craving was the protein, because I wasn't eating very much at all. I didn't go on it to lose weight. I went on it strictly to manage my diabetes. I only lost about 10 pounds, but I was craving the protein. And when my kids wanted pizza, I was thinking buffalo wings. And so I'd had buffalo wings a couple times, and that really exasperated, I guess, the acid reflux that I was having. And it became so bad that I couldn't talk without having a coughing fit. It was basically causing me asthma, and some asthma presents as coughing. So I couldn't talk, and I worked in customer service. That made it very difficult. And then it got so bad that one night I woke up by aspirating some of my stomach acid. And let me tell you, that is a rude way to wake up.
Wow.
And so I talked to my doctor, and they told me that I could take double the amount of my prescription acid medicine. And so I did that for about a month, and I stayed away from the buffalo wings, and things seemed to turn back to normal. But then I started experiencing some changes in my vision. So when I would go into the place that I worked, it was very bright. There was tons of lighting there, and my eyes were sensitive to the brightness. And sometimes when I'd look different directions, it would be like streaks. Like if you look at a flashlight, you're out in the dark and someone shines a flashlight or something, and you have that streaking effect. There would be that. And then other things would have like a halo look about it. And I thought, well, this is pretty weird, but it wasn't enough to concern me to call my doctor at that point. So,
wow. If we just step back for a minute on the Ozempic, we're hearing about this in the news and everywhere now because a lot of people are using it for weight loss. But is that something that they presented to you like back in 2015? Because I thought I heard that it's been around for a long time for treating type 2 diabetes, even though it seems like a lot of people are getting on it for weight loss now. Was that something they presented to you earlier, or did you know anything about it when they suggested it this time?
No, I didn't know anything about it. I was familiar with the process with diabetes because my husband was diabetic, but they didn't present Ozempic. I did not learn anything about Ozempic. Well, I mean, I'd see the commercials, but I just paid them no mind. And then I didn't really learn anything about the Ozempic until they went to put me on it. And that wasn't until, just like I told you, in 2022.
When you
But
first,
I
I'm sorry.
I would say that I'm hearing more and more people being put on Ozempic as a first line defense for pre-diabetes. So they don't even have diabetes yet. And their doctors are not putting them on. They're presenting Ozempic as a way to prevent them from going on insulin.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And is it true, like with Ozempic, if you're told to take it, is it kind of like a lifelong thing?
Well, they're presented as a lifelong thing, but there are many people who have gone off of Ozempic. And some people don't gain the weight back because they've learned how to manage their diet during the time that they're on Ozempic. But if they just kept eating their regular standard diet, they're going to gain the weight back plus some. Because the Ozempic, it starves you and you lose the protein and you lose the bone density and the connective tissue density and the muscles. So it's just a recipe, like the perfect storm for weight gain.
Mm. And so when you started taking it in September 2022, what sort of things did you notice? Like, did your hunger just kind of cease, or what did you notice initially?
Well, I didn't, yeah, I wasn't very hungry. I wasn't given a diet to follow. I was not given any explanation of side effects. And so I just ate what I wanted to eat. I didn't change anything. And I wasn't hungry. So I'd eat much smaller portions. But if there was a cookie there and I wanted to eat it, I would eat it. I'm not the best with, I do have a sugar addiction. So, but.
I'm with you there. So September 2022, you started it, and then you started having these vision problems you noticed at work. What happened after that?
Well, I was at work another time at work, and I noticed that the lower quarter half of my left eye was like a whitish gray, and I couldn't see anything out of that portion of my eye. And that scared me. And of course, I had my boss or someone look in my eye so that, to see if they could see anything. And, even today, you look in my eyes, you wouldn't know that I'm blind because they don't look differently. And so it rapidly, like by the next day, it was the lower half of my left eye was like that. And if I could describe it like anything, it was like looking through a glass that had had milk in the bottom of it and it had dried, and trying to look through the bottom of the glass. It's just, there were solid spots that I couldn't see through. So when the lower half of my eye became obstructed, I called my doctor. I would have called her sooner, but it just, it happened so quickly. And she told me to go to the ER. And I did. I went to the ER and they did, they looked in my eyes. They did an MRI. They said there was swelling in my eyes. So they wanted to make sure I didn't have intracranial pressure. So they did a spinal tap. And when they couldn't find anything on my blood work or anything, they just discharged me and sent me home without any sort of treatment plan or anything. And they
goodness.
said, follow up with the clinic there in the hospital in 2 weeks. Well, the hospital clinic was so busy that they scheduled me an appointment 4 weeks away. And I called and tried to get in earlier, and they said that they didn't have any availability. And in hindsight, I should have just gone back to the ER because it progressed to my whole left eye. And then it started over on the lower part of my right eye. And then it was, by the time I was in to see the doctor, it was both eyes completely. And they did their examinations, a field test, which is a big machine that you look in with one eye visible at a time. And it shines different lights to see where my field of vision is and where it's lacking. And they did some photographs of the back of my eye. And then after the appointment, they basically took me down to the emergency room and admitted me. And at that time, they put me on 3 days of IV steroids Now, it wasn't 3 full days. It was one dose of the IV steroids each day, but being a diabetic, that can be extremely dangerous because it really raises your blood sugars.
So you're losing your vision. That had to be so incredibly scary. And then they're like, well, just go check in with the clinic in a couple of weeks while your vision's continually getting worse and you're slowly going blind. I can't imagine.
Right.
Oh my goodness. How did that feel at the time? Like, what were your feelings when your vision was being lost?
It was very scary. It was very scary. I didn't know what was going to happen, and my vision today is better than what it was at that time because there was all the inflammation, and now the inflammation has gone down. But, there was no answers. When I was in the hospital, they did another MRI and they did more blood work, and there was something else that they had done, but I can't remember right now. But they did MRI with contrast. They did the contrast because they wanted to see if it was autoimmune related. And so the contrast in that MRI ruled out autoimmune. And so they didn't have any answers for me. They said, all your labs come back normal, and this is really rare. They kept repeating over and over, this is really rare for this to happen and it to affect both eyes. Because they, at that point, were already assuming it was because of my diabetes. Now, mind you, I'd had my eyes checked not too long before, like within the year, I'd had my eyes checked, and I did not have any diabetic illnesses in either of my eyes at that time, and I wasn't having any disruptions of vision or anything. Now, what I have been diagnosed with is optic neuropathy, which is basically nerve death. And the one vision problem that Ozempic does acknowledge is retinopathy, which that is different than optic neuropathy, because the retina actually detaches, and there's generally, I could be a little wrong, there's generally a lot of pressure in the eye, and then there's bleeding too, because the blood vessels burst and stuff like that. I didn't have any of that. Through the whole course of this time, while we were trying to get the inflammation down, they were telling me that there's no damage in my eyes, that once the inflammation's gone, my eyesight will come back. There's no damage. They didn't find any damage. After I was discharged from the hospital, they gave me a prescription of prednisone. So I was on, I think, 40 milligrams of prednisone for the first 2 weeks. And then I tapered 40, 30, 20, 10. And I was on 10 for 2 weeks, not the 40. But I tapered down off the prednisone. And by the time I went in for that visit, the swelling was down. And the doctor, well, I should have mentioned, this is a training hospital. So the resident doctors were checking me, and then every time the overseeing doctor would come in and discuss things with me. Well, every time I saw these resident doctors, I told them it was the Ozempic that caused this. And then when the last time, when all of the inflammation was gone, the overseeing doctor came in and just bluntly told me that I was going to have, that was permanent, that I was going to have to get used to a life with low vision, and that here are these resources. I had been being told for months that it wasn't permanent, So this was just, through that time, I had the anxiety of worrying about, are they right? Is my vision really going to come back? And so to just have him come in there and just bluntly, this is the facts, basically get over it. When I asked him, well, what caused it? Because they hadn't even told me. And he basically told me that it was my diabetes plus my autoimmune, or plus my sleep apnea, or it was my sleep apnea and my autoimmune, or my sleep apnea, to take my pick. It was like, I'll never forget those words, because
Wow.
it's like anything but Ozempic. Don't blame Ozempic.
Right.
So then I was off of the prednisone. It took a little bit for the prednisone to get out of my system. The prednisone itself, a side effect can be blurry vision. So once the prednisone got out of my system, my vision cleared up a little bit. My right eye is still not stable. I'm still having nerve death as of my last appointment. And so I go every 3 months until they become stabilized, so for them to check the progress of my nerve death. Now, there's nothing they can do for it except for observe it. So that's kind of crazy, but.
So what's your vision like now?
Okay, so if I were to describe it, you know how black light makes things glow?
Yep.
So if you were in a room with the lights on, but you also had a black light on, so that it would make the brighter things just a little bit glowy, but not like as if you were in a dark room. That's kind of how my vision is. I'm a little colorblind now. So if I were to see a bag or see something that was like an olive green, to me, it would look gray. I can't really tell the difference between like coral, peach, or pink. Just some things, variations like that. And down here, down below my, like this part of my vision is pretty blind. I'm a tripping hazard, a tripping risk because of it. And my central vision in my left eye, that's where the damage is on my left eye. So I can see peripheral vision on my left eye. And then on my right eye, it's the lower part of my eye, but I can see out straight. So I can still walk and do things like that. If I were to be outside and the sun were not right above me, but let's say it's getting 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that, when it shines in my eyes, it's as if I'm looking through a sheer blind on a window, and the sun's shining on it. You know how it'll light up and it'll turn white? That's kind of how it is. So, yeah. And then if it's raining, like if I'm riding with my kids in the car, if it's raining and you've got that splatter, it makes me pretty much completely blind. It just all looks gray. Yeah. I'm thankful that I'm not completely blind. You know, that would have been so much harder for me to cope with mentally. So I hang on to those small blessings.
So what happened after that? I guess with the Ozempic, what other changes sort of happened after that?
Well, of course, when my eyesight started going, I stopped taking the Ozempic right then. I never got past pretty much what they consider a starter dose now. But then it was 5 or 6 days after I told my friend, a close friend of mine, that I had lost my vision because of the Ozempic, that we created a Facebook page to try to bring awareness to all of the side effects of this terrible drug.
I guess with the group and the Facebook page, what are some other things that you've heard or learned about in terms of side effects from Ozempic?
Oh my goodness. We've had people who've had to have their gallbladders removed. We've had people who one of our members' husband died after only taking 2 shots. He had become so ill with nausea, with throwing up and diarrhea, that it diminished his electrolytes so much that he had a heart attack. And that is what the doctor put on his death certificate. She posted a picture of him. He was not obese. He just looked like, your average middle-aged man now. And So he was just trying to control his diabetes, and then he was stolen from them. There's another woman who literally had to go out of state to get treatment. She had a gallbladder blockage, and the doctors in her state wouldn't treat her. So she went out of state, and the doctor had scheduled her for surgery to remove what was blocking her gallbladder. And it was set aside like maybe 4 weeks down the road, and they had to come back. And it was a 4-hour trip for her, but they had to come back, and they did an emergency surgery on her. Now, this woman, she tells her story. She knew she was dying, and her doctors were not listening to her. She literally sat her boys down and basically was telling them her goodbyes. And she went and seen the surgeon in the other state, and they performed the surgery to unblock her gallbladder. And when she came to, he said, "You wouldn't have made it another week." This drug, they treat this drug as if it's the miracle drug, but it is maiming and killing people. There are people who have mental side effects. It creates anxiety, depression. There's been suicides.
I was listening to someone talk about this drug and saying that it's in some ways it sort of paralyzes the stomach, and a lot of the serotonin and things. There's a big connection between the gut and the brain when it comes to mental health issues. And his argument was, yeah, you're paralyzing the stomach. It's going to have downstream effects. Lots of people reporting depression, anxiety, things like that.
Yeah. So my close friend who started this page, she actually is in kidney failure from this drug, as well as she has retinopathy. So I would like to say, in comparison, when I was on the drug, the feeling of not having an appetite, not being hungry, I get that same feeling from the carnivore diet. I'm not hungry. I promote the carnivore diet and the keto diet heavily in our group. But it's just like, I wish that I had gone on that first. I'd be so much better off.
That was going to be my next question. How did you find the carnivore diet?
Well, I had a lot more time, seeing as how I was no longer working or even going anywhere, because I couldn't. I listened to videos, and I don't remember the first video I watched, but I started watching Dr. Ken Berry, some of his videos, and I started watching your video. In fact, I started the carnivore diet just prior to your video about Bill Nye, I said his name. Anyway, Bill from Alaska.
Yeah.
But I had been trying to maintain my blood sugars after going off of Ozempic and being on the steroids. And when I was on the steroids, my sugars were insanely high. I thought it was from the steroids, but I realized later it was actually from the Ozempic. The Ozempic, I put a poll up on our Facebook page, and about 50% of the people who responded to the poll said that after they'd gone off the Ozempic, that their sugars were erratic and hard to control. So it does something to your pancreas or something. So it's a significant portion of people. It was just a small little poll, of course, but I thought that was significant. But my sugars were anywhere between 300 and 500 and above on any given day. I was taking insane amounts of insulin. I was taking like 50 to 55 units of long-acting insulin and anywhere from 70 to 100 units of short-acting insulin a day. And my sugars were still in the 300s and above. About that time, my insurance company decided that they were not going to cover the long-acting insulin that I had been using, and they switched me to a cheaper quality insulin, and it didn't work whatsoever for me because I tested it. Because when I took it, I'm like, I don't think this is working. And so I went a day without it, and then I went a day with it, and there was no difference. intolerance. And so it made me so angry. I felt so abused by the system at this point that I was just so angry. And I'd been watching these videos, and I'm hard to get started, but once I get started, I generally keep on rolling with it. But it just made me so angry that I just said, to heck with you all. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going on the carnivore diet, and I'm getting rid of my diabetes and all these other issues I'm dealing with. And of course, I was hoping that I would have some improvement in my eyesight, but, that's not happening at this time.
So when did you start carnivore?
It was July 25th, I think.
It's like, what was the first week or so like for you? Because it's usually kind of tough for people.
Oh my gosh, it was so hard. It was so hard to get over the sugar cravings. And then I was so blown up with insulin and inflammation. And it really was a struggle of willpower over it, but I was angry enough that I could do it. I was angry enough at the system that, by golly, I was going to do it. And I was going to show them all.
And what was your first couple of weeks like? What were you eating?
Hot dogs. Didn't have an income, so there wasn't much I could eat. But hot dogs and lunch meat if I had it. Just whatever I could get cheapest. Pretty much still live on just hamburger meat. I do cheat a little bit with pickles, dill pickles. I'm not going to lie to you.
Right.
But yeah. So I was doing really good on it. And I would go to Costco or Sam's Club, and I would get a big package of hamburger meat. And then I got some of the bacon. I found some bacon at Costco that doesn't have any sugar in it. And eggs. We have some chickens. We have some ladies out back that do supply us with some eggs.
What sort of changes did you start noticing after being on carnivore for a couple of weeks?
My inflammation started going away. And this inflammation was bad enough for me to go to a arthritis specialist, an RA doctor. It started going away, and I was starting to be comfortable walking in my feet. They hurt always before. I started losing weight right away. I think that was, I had all this inflammation and all the prednisone and the drugs. I mean, I must have been carrying a lot of fluid on me. I lost quite a bit of weight. In 4 months' time, I lost 38 pounds.
Wow.
And I was trying to do the math, because around Thanksgiving and Christmas time, I did have a period where I went back to the standard American diet of eating, and I did gain like 10 pounds. So, but I'm human. I'm allowed to err. And right. I just, I do want to caution those who are thinking about going off of a carnivore diet. It's so much harder the second time, because the first time I was angry and I had something to prove. The second time I knew what was best for me, and then I knew it tasted really good too, so it was so much harder the second time to get through that adjustment period.
So are you saying that you kind of wish you didn't cheat?
Didn't cheat? Oh, absolutely. 100% times 100.
That's good advice, because a lot of people, I think they approach carnivore. I yo-yo dieted so much and did Weight Watchers, counting calories, all those things, where you could be like, I've done so good for 2 weeks. I could just have one day and just cheat. But it's very different on carnivore, because you're dealing with ketosis, and you knock yourself out of ketosis. It could take a week or even longer to get back into it. So it's not like you're just cheating for one day. It's almost like you're committing to a week or longer. And that's if you could just jump right back on it. But
I used to always take it as a badge of honor that I didn't have any addictions. That's the way I thought, it's just like my doctor could prescribe me some pain medicine for my neck, because I do have a bad neck. And she would prescribe this pain medicine for me, and I would have it for months, and I would only use it sparingly, So I'd have this badge of honor that I don't have an addictive personality. Well, let me tell you what, I do have an addictive personality, and it's an addiction to sugar and carbs, and it is legit. It is a legitimate addiction. And I just went, when I went off the wagon, my wagon exploded. And my daughter came into the kitchen one day as I was cutting another slice of cheesecake. And she said, "Mom, really? Throw that stuff away." Which I did. But it was just like, I was like manic. It was like, who is this person? I can no longer say I don't have an addictive personality. I just realize now what my addiction is.
I'm with you, Cheryl. The same thing. Some people, they say, "Oh, I can have a little bit of carbs. I can have some blueberries, some raspberries. I have a carb dial," and I've realized I don't have that dial at all. If I have any little bit of sugar, it's just like an alcoholic. And that's one of the things that makes it even way harder for us, is because if you were an alcoholic and you recovered, it's a huge challenge, obviously. But if you're a sugar addict and you recover, and then you go to the grocery store and there's 60,000 products, almost everyone has sugar. Everyone's eating sugar. Kids are eating sugar. Every party you go to, it's sugar, sugar, sugar. Makes it a lot harder. So, yeah, for me too.
And it's laced in all our food.
Yeah.
It's laced in all the food too.
Everything. Everywhere you go. Yep. So that's really encouraging, though, about the inflammation, because you mentioned Bill Knott earlier. That was the same thing he noticed. I remember, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks into him doing carnivore, he said, "This is crazy. I had so much pain in my knees and lower back and things like that, and it's gone." He's like, "How can this happen so fast?" And it's inflammation. That inflammation goes away really quickly for a lot of people when you start eating the carnivore diet.
Yeah, I still have sleep apnea though.
Okay.
But it's much better. And I was thinking about this. My acid reflux is gone, but through this journey of discovering health, I have watched many videos, and I came to realize that I am woefully ignorant, for one thing, and that where these doctors are specializing in different sections and they're not communicating with each other, so things are being left unsaid. There is a condition, and the acronym for it is LPR, but it is also known as silent acid reflux. And there is a connection between silent acid reflux and sleep apnea. So you obviously, because your sleep apnea resolved so quickly, you obviously don't have any other conditions that are affecting it. But the silent reflex is basically gases escape, and it's silent because you don't get the heartburn, but it goes up your throat and it will damage your throat, your larynx, things like that. And someone might feel like they always have a sore throat. They might feel like they always have allergies and postnasal drip, but it could be this silent reflux, and it's very connected with the sleep apnea. So to the extent that my weight and my diet was causing sleep apnea, it has resolved. It's very much better, but I still have the silent reflex. So as my body heals of that problem, I feel like my sleep apnea will eventually go away. But I just wanted to mention that because I know that it's really encouraging when someone hears, "Hey, you can get rid of your sleep apnea by going on the carnivore diet." And I did it in the first day, the first week or whatever, and then it doesn't go away. And you're like, wait a minute, but they may have an underlying condition like the silent reflux or something like that. So
yeah, for sure. I try to be careful too now, because I'm like, my results were pretty extraordinary. Although I have heard other people, Dr. Jordan Peterson said he stopped snoring the first week, but everyone's different. And like Cheryl said, there's different things underlying it. It's interesting you mentioned the silent reflux, because of all of my issues and ailments I had over the years, that was also one I was diagnosed with several years ago. And I did keto on and off. And I honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know, because it's like you said, you don't feel it. But I had an endoscopy done. And I remember afterwards, they're like, whoa, like your whole esophagus, the whole way down, it's all just inflamed from this silent reflux coming up, and it's damaging it. And mine was so bad that they were like, they said, you're going to have an endoscopy done at some higher, I can't remember what it was, but it was like every couple of years, whereas it wouldn't have been necessary for other people, because I guess if you have that long enough, that could, a chronic thing like that could lead to cancer down the road or other issues. So it's probably something I should get tested for again. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, everyone's different. The snoring thing for me too, it was really frustrating for me, because the sleep doctor, I think he meant well, but he was just like, it's just because you're overweight. And I'm sure that played a part in it. But I thought that was the only thing. And that's very discouraging. He's like, you need to lose 80 pounds. You're going to keep snoring. And you tell anybody that's 80 pounds, 100 pounds overweight, the only way to stop snoring is this. It's not true for a lot of people. But yeah, like you said, everyone's different. It might take longer. It seems like it's 50-50. I get so many testimonies on my site where people are like, I stopped snoring really quick. And other people are like, it helped a little bit, but I'm still kind of snoring, or still have the CPAP machine.
I also have IBS, but I don't have it anymore. And I have a lot of food allergies. So anytime anybody tries to convince me that I have to eat some vegetables, I just say I'm allergic to all of them, because I practically am.
Right. So, it's not even misleading them at all. That was the same thing for me too. If you would just eat vegetables, you'd be fine. No, I did that, and I was miserable with IBS and stomach bubbling and gurgling and hurting all of the time. And it was only after I stopped those things I felt better. So I don't know if that's an allergy or what it is, but it's definitely something there. So,
well, I literally was allergic to a lot of them. My allergist called me special. My back would light up like a Christmas tree, and they don't test for everything. So,
well, that's one of the beautiful things with carnivore. That was one of the reasons I started it too, is it's because I'm like, this is the ultimate elimination. If I'm just eating meat, and I start feeling better, then I know something I was eating was causing these issues. My plan initially was, after 30 days, I could just start adding those vegetables back and see if one of them starts affecting me. But I never did that, because I felt so good. I realized I was getting everything I needed, all the nutrition and everything I needed just from the meat. So I never did that. But so you've had some incredible improvements on carnivore. What about the diabetes? Has anything changed there in terms of insulin and medication you're taking?
Well, so I don't take anything for my diabetes.
Wow.
My blood sugars were getting really good before the holidays. My labs are really good. But after the holidays, I struggle a little bit. I think that I'm having some glycated red blood cells, because my fasting insulin is 5.9. But my A1C, the last one, which was just like last week, was 8.9. So anyway, it was in the 8s, which is higher than what you would like it. But I think that it's because my red blood cells are living longer. Dr. Berry talks about that. I asked the doctors for the test that he suggested, and they couldn't even find it. So I'm about to start at a gym through my insurance company. I got a gym membership, so I'm going to start just working to get my blood sugar down through exercise, because that does work. I notice even just going for a walk, it will drop down. I feel so much better. Even when I was on insulin, even if I got my sugars down in a good range, I did not feel good, because the insulin, it was just, insulin creates hunger and cravings. So it's a real vicious circle. But I just didn't feel like I do now, even though my sugar may be a little higher, not on insulin, like the better days on insulin before Ozempic. I still didn't feel as energetic, as clear-headed, and just a sense of well-being.
So you're not on any medication for the diabetes now? It's just carnivore diet? And
Yeah.
Wow. If you could go back to 2015, when you were first diagnosed with the diabetes, what would you tell yourself or do differently?
Well, I didn't know anything about the carnivore diet. I think that I would tell myself to just stop eating the carbs, to stop eating anything with carbohydrates. I did know at that time of some of the triggers with the food and stuff like that. And so I probably would have started making better choices with what I was eating. I'm very thankful that there is so much information out there now about the carnivore diet, constantly telling people that they should give it a try at least. It's not going to hurt you just to try it for 3 months and see how you feel. You can always go back to the standard American diet if you felt better there. But I know that wouldn't happen. If someone can make it 3 months, they're probably not going to go back.
Yeah, I always tell people that you can just do it for a couple months and then you get birthday cake again, knowing in my brain there's no way they're going to go back if they try this. I'm still learning a lot, Cheryl. I have a lot of family members with type 2 diabetes. And so my whole life before finding carnivore, and I mean, I'm still learning now, I was always like, that's just the way it is. They have that. That's just the way it is. There's nothing they can do about it. They have to take insulin for the rest of their lives or Ozempic. Is it fair to say that in most cases for type 2 diabetes, it's just the food we're eating? Humans have escaped from what is natural. We're eating improper foods that our bodies weren't designed to process and handle. And if we just go back to what's natural, we don't need to take the insulin and we don't have to worry about type 2 diabetes. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say. In fact, in other countries, that is how they treat diabetes, by their diet. And in other countries, they see, in the Western culture, we're the only culture who thinks that diabetes is a lifetime sentence. All the other countries, they treat it by what you're eating. And they eat the meat and they take away the starchy vegetables and stuff like that. And people are living regular lives. They're not getting their limbs chopped off or losing, going blind from the actual diabetes. Mine was Ozempic, but, they tried to pin it on the diabetes because that was an easy excuse. Every type 2 diabetic has got an insulin problem and they're metabolically ill. It's not that their body is not creating insulin, because then they would be type 1. It is that they have too much insulin. Their body's creating too much insulin, and they've just gotten to the point where they no longer can bring those sugars down with the insulin. It becomes resistant at that time. If I had known back then that mine was not a sugar problem, but was an insulin problem, I would have treated it completely different. The doctors and the modern medicine are using old, outdated information to treat this illness when all along it's like putting a Band-Aid on a cut. It's not healing. The Band-Aid's not healing the cut. And if there's a jagged edge somewhere, you're going to keep getting cut if you don't take care of the jagged edge. You got to get rid of the jagged edge, let your body heal, and then you won't get cut anymore. And everything will go back to the way it's supposed to be. Insulin is the problem, but they treat the symptom. And that's kind of how our medical society approach everything, is let's treat the symptoms and then everybody will be happy because you won't have any symptoms anymore. Like you said, the cancer or something like that, you'll have raging cancer in your body, but you won't feel it. So everything's good.
Exactly. I really love how you said that too. We're not treating the root cause of the problem and putting Band-Aids on it and trying to mask it. And it's scary because then these people go on with these issues like you did since 2015. Imagine if you would have known about, hey, this was a metabolic illness. If I treated that in 2015, all of those years you had to suffer and go through all of this. It's just crazy. And like, this is for type 2 diabetes, right? But it's everything. It's like every health issue. You go to the doctor. I know everyone I did. The big one for me was depression, mental health issues. That was also, in my opinion, a metabolic illness. It was from eating sugar and processed foods and having inflammation in my brain. When I stopped eating that food, my depression went away. But for years and years, they tried to mask it. Here, take this pill, take that pill. And none of that ever worked because it wasn't treating the root cause of the problem. It's sad too, because it's like, I think part of it is motivated by, if they just told you back in 2015, here, carnivore diet, eat this way, stop eating that. They made a hell of a lot more money having you on insulin and medication for your entire life. And that's one of the things that's really disturbing to me for a lot of these issues is how much of this is money driving things, whether intentionally or subconsciously. It's just whatever's most profitable seems to be what ends up happening. And then people end up being sick for years and years and decades and decades.
And not just me, because I have a family. You know,
Yes.
my husband was diabetic and died of kidney failure in 2021. My oldest, he also has type 2 diabetic. So my whole family would have benefited from proper medical care if I had been informed of what really was the problem. My whole family, I would have cooked for my whole family differently.
Right.
And we all would have been in a better place.
That gets me when you talk about the family, because that was the same thing. I was just talking to someone the other day. I'm like, with my mental health and depression, was horrible, clinically, suicidally depressed for years and years and years. But I'm like, I can tough it out, right? That was just me. But now I think about my family and my kids that had to sit there with a catatonic father that was like a zombie, just sitting on the couch and not being there for them for well over a decade. And yeah, it was, and what is the root reason for that? Because I was confused and I was metabolically ill. And when I went to the doctor and they didn't treat the root cause of the problem. Cheryl, what would you say to someone that's desperate and hopeless and they have type 2 diabetes and they're considering taking Ozempic?
I would say no. Don't take Ozempic. Don't take Wegovy. Don't take any of those drugs. I would encourage them to go to YouTube, look up Carnivore Diet, and to educate themselves and to possibly get into a group, a supportive group of carnivores or ketovores or keto people eating keto, and to keep a positive outlook. You know, it's very difficult. I know, especially like if you have depression and things like that, but just to keep play this recording in your head of things are going to get better. I'm going to get through this, you know, and just continue to tell yourself that you're working towards a good outcome. You know, you're working against the root problem. You're fixing that root problem. And at the end of the tunnel, it's going to be bright and sunny. You know, there's hope. There's hope.
I love that you said that. There is hope. That's kind of the theme of the documentary we're working on, is you don't have to be hopeless. And yeah, I'm just thinking, not to belabor this point, but the whole thing with Ozempic too, it's kind of like insulin. It's kind of like my depression. It's kind of like not treating the root cause of the problem. Just huge. My big carnivore thing now, my big epiphany, the proper human diet is we just as humans have to return to what's natural and treat the root cause of the problem. And with Ozempic, it's like a lot of people are eating the wrong foods. They're eating too much sugar, processed foods like that. And then we're going to take this medication that's going to paralyze our stomach so we can continue to do that. Anyone that really thinks that through, I think, will say that's probably not a good long-term solution. But I'm not judging anyone, because you're desperate. You go to your doctor like, oh, here it is. This is what you do. You just take this. But when you really think it through, the other advice, I love Cheryl's advice. There's hope. Go and do your own research. Take things into your own two hands before you just say, oh, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this because the doctor, the mainstream is saying it. Watch Dr. Ken Berry's video. I think he has 2 of them on reversing type 2 diabetes. I never had diabetes, but those videos are what convinced me to do carnivore. One of his videos, it has 2 million views, 2,000 comments, and almost every comment is like, Dr. Berry, you saved my life. Dr. Berry, my A1C went from this to this. Dr. Berry, I thought insulin and what my doctor was telling me was the only option. 10 minutes watching your videos changed my life forever. If you ever want just to have a smile on your face, even if you don't have type 2 diabetes, just go read those comments. It's so life-changing. And you see it over and over and over again. So there definitely is hope out there. So, wow, Cheryl, you have a crazy story. I can't believe we're already over an hour now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's flown by.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your message is really going to help a lot of people. I really thank you a lot for sharing your story. I'm hoping we can stay in touch and talk again soon. But I wanted to shout out too, Cheryl has her own YouTube channel and she has the Ozempic Facebook group, and I'll have links for both of those in the description below. Is there anything else you wanted to mention or shout out before we wrap up, Cheryl?
Well, the YouTube channel, I don't have any videos on there yet, but it's called Embracing Hope. And I really hope that if anybody is considering taking Ozempic, that they would put a pause on that and do the research first, because they really don't educate to the side effects. And once you start taking it, you kind of get into this thought of, well, I'm doing okay. This isn't going to happen to me. Several times I hear, well, I've been on it so many months and I have no side effects. But the truth of the story is that it is making changes in your body. It just hasn't caught up with you yet. And so it is a life-changing drug, and it's not to be taken lightly. And carnivore is the way. So I just really appreciate you inviting me onto your channel to talk to you about that and to try to spread awareness about this drug.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you sharing your story and your words, and I think it's going to provide a lot of hope and inspiration for people. Really important message. So thank you so much, Cheryl. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.